everyone, and welcome back to our 5th episode of the Mowing the Lawn podcast. No idea we'd make it this far. Kind of afraid, kind of ashamed at the quality after 5 episodes, but here we are. Joined with me, myself, Owen, is Mo, my good buddy, and our other co-host, who I'm mostly indifferent towards, Noah. I'm just kidding.
You're mostly indifferent towards?
I'm just kidding. He's a cutie patootie, and I love him. Noah, if you get a genie wish, and this genie grants you the ability to become one of the top 100 in whatever hobby you want, with the condition that you can never, ever profit off of it. You have to be purely an amateur at whatever that hobby is. What do you choose, and why, and how?
Well, first of all, I want to say that it is an honor and a privilege to be on this podcast. 5 episodes deep. Well done to both of you.
Thank you.
Very big fan of your work. Second, to answer that question, I'm assuming what you mean is that I can't make any money off of it.
Yes,
like that's
correct.
Profit. Okay.
So if you choose basketball, you can cross up kids at the Y, but
Right.
nothing else.
Right. I would say, for me personally, it would be either it'd be an instrument of some kind, like a musical instrument, probably electric guitar or drums, as both of those instruments I've kind of been fascinated with lately. Just listening to music and kind of trying to, pinpoint in the drums like different rhythms and tempos and time, and also just like listening to how some drummers do their fills and all that like differently than others, and also just how it differs across different genres of music, and also electric guitar, just because rock music or music with guitars is stuff that I've listened to for like my whole life. My parents are big into U2, so I was raised on a lot of U2's stuff, and that got me into like the older rock and roll stuff, but also the more contemporary stuff as well, even into heavy metal and stuff like that. I the really heavy like percussive guitar is also fascinating to me. So yeah, I definitely pick be a member of a band that tours around for drinks and laughs and just general fun.
And something you could have fun with just in your own time.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, so with that pick, would you use your powers for good and responsibly, or would you show up to random Battle of the Bands and just shred everyone out of the building and make them feel bad about themselves?
And then just leave before you collect the prize.
I think a bit of both. Yeah. I think it's fun to, it'd be fun to just, do that in like my own time for my own enjoyment, but it'd also be fun to shit on some kids and then just give them the check because I feel bad or something, like, oh, you got destroyed so hard, but you're lucky I got blessed by a genie who made it so I can't make any money, so here you go.
You're lucky that I'm literally not allowed to make money,
exactly.
So you can have my pity award.
And I could also see you showing up to like a children's hospital or like a regular hospital and just like shredding for some kids that are having a bad day.
Oh yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
And just brighten the mood a bit.
I'm not really like a money motivated person. Well, it's not that I don't like it. Obviously, I like, to some degree, but I definitely like, there are better things, or just like other motivators for me that serve as bigger motivators than money in general. So the whole caveat that I can't make money off of it, maybe not, it wasn't as big of a deal to me as it may be for some other people, I will say.
Yeah, I respect that. And then being top 100 of that, definitely pretty high up in the percentile.
Yeah. You'd be good.
Being able to shred.
I'd be able to make a lot of money. It's a good thing I don't actually have that problem.
For me, I would want to be in the top 100 of long distance running.
Nice.
Those of you that know me know that I love a good light jog. Like, I would never have to pay for an Uber if I could just like rip out a quick 10 miles, just like run home, no problem. just run to the airport 10 miles away. Don't need to pay for anything. Just get anywhere I want to. No problem.
So it would be the epitome of why Uber when I can walk/run there.
Yeah.
But then your range is extended out.
Yeah, park 10 miles away from the busy function, just run in. Don't even bust a sweat.
So like, you could just like bust out the 100th fastest marathon.
Yeah, or like Ironman ultra marathon runner, like those people that run like 100 miles in like a day and a half nonstop.
Yeah, no, I like that pick a lot, and I was thinking of a similar way with that. I was also thinking music, but I kind of like the struggle with music, although maybe I don't as much. But what the vein that I was thinking is I would want to be top 100 in gymnastics. And I was first thinking of it as the life-saving feature of it. If like you're ever in like a dangerous spot that like most people would die in, maybe a gymnast could like climb their way out of it.
Like what sort of spot?
Like you like fall into like a hole while you're hiking or something.
Oh, and you can do like a Mario triple jump off the walls to get out.
Yeah, or something.
Yeah, or like just be really easily pull your.
Or if you're like
up.
Trapped in a car that's like underwater. I don't know why I'm thinking of that specific one right now.
Jeez.
But you know, just something along those lines where you need to like flip your way out of it. But it'd also just be sweet to like you're hanging out with your friends. You're like, hey, I bet I can climb that tree better than you can.
Do like a triple backflip off of it for no reason. Yeah.
I think it has a lot of utility that would lend itself well.
Yeah, like the spectacle of it makes it worth it to not like be able to profit off of it. Like you can have fun with it.
I just want to be more flexible than I am right now. Anyways, since this is the Mowing the Lawn podcast, we like to always include a little tidbit of information or a cool story for those of us that actually mow lawns. So, Mo, would you like to kick us off with your lawn care tip?
Yeah, I've got one that's a little spring based. It specifically has to do with bird feeders. A lot of birds are migrating right now, so people will be seeing a lot of diversity in the local birds that they're having at their feeders. Just a couple tips: keep the seeds dry. Seems like an obvious one, but a lot of the molds and funguses that can grow on seeds when they're wet can be fatal to birds, so you want to make sure those are safe for them. Keep them 12 feet away from nearby bushes and trees, no more than that, so they feel safe approaching the source of food and they can dart back into cover when they need to. And importantly, keep your cats inside. This isn't even a bird feeder tip, just a general ecosystem tip. They are an invasive predator. They create stress in the environment, and they can aid in the spread of diseases, so it's just a good idea if you can to keep your cats inside. Even outdoor cats, there's ways to get them to adapt to being inside-only kitties.
Yeah, Roger.
You never go outside.
How close has Roger gotten to flying the coop?
When I lived with my dad, he used to get out quite a bit because he would forget to close the door, and he would just go outside and then get scared, but then not know what to do, so he would just sort of like crouch next to the wall. So that's the exploring he's done.
Cutie.
Poor guy. Roger, we're going to have to get you on the podcast sometime.
Roger.
There's a lot to say about not very much.
Top 10 scariest moments of your life. Roger, new person came in. Noah, have you ever mowed the lawn in your entire life? And do you have any tips on it?
Yes, absolutely. I actually started mowing the lawn for my parents when I was in 3rd grade. And I also mowed the lawn for my next door neighbors who were their Catholic sisters, but they're older. So they were like physically unable to do it themselves. They still tell me the story of the day that I was, in 3rd grade and knocked on their door and asked if I could mow their lawn for them. And they were just so delighted and happy that, we have a neighbor who will actually take care of this for us. Like, that's incredible. So, I started off with this crappy old rusty push mower that came with the house when we moved in. Was like missing the back rollers, so like the steel would dig into the dirt, so I'd have to like hold it up myself. But then my dad got a brand new push mower that was, like fully functional and all that. And so that's what I used for a while until I got to like 6th grade. And then I started using the gas mower that my dad used when I was a kid, that is still running, that he still uses to this day. It is older than me. It's pretty
Wow.
incredible. But anyway, my tips, I have a couple of them. So one of them, they're both actually equipment related. Sharpen your blades. Get the blades on your mower sharpened, because that will do you a lot of good if you're, especially like for push mowers, and even for like electric and gas mowers. If you're finding yourself having to do multiple runs to cut all the grass, it's definitely because your blades are dull, and getting them sharpened is not very expensive. It's pretty cheap. You could also do it yourself. And my next tip leads into that. If you do it yourself, make sure that if you're using an electric mower, you unplug the mower before you start messing with the blades. And if you're using a gas mower, make sure you disconnect the spark plug. Take the spark plug out.
So like you're speaking from experience.
My grandpa, actually, my mom's dad, got part of his ring finger chopped off from a lawnmower blade. And yeah, that's why I say unplug your electric mowers and take out the spark plug for gas mowers, because you don't want the thing just starting when your hands are all up in those sharp blades.
Yeah, you know how those lawnmowers have like 1.5 million warning labels on them, and it's all like the most horrific thing, like don't hold the lawnmower over your head while you're carrying it because you might drop it in.
Don't mow uphill from an infant, or whatever they say.
Yeah, and you know that every single one of those has some horrific story behind it and a lawsuit, and that's part of the way that they cover it out. My mowing the lawn tip is just to have a plan and exercise caution even while you're mowing the lawn. The planning part of it is that if more than one person lives at your house and has some plants that maybe aren't as separate from the lawn, that they're trying to let grow, to not resist the masculine urge to just plow through every single living thing so that it's like as short as it can possibly be. But also just like, if you see a pile of sticks and you're not sure what's underneath it, just like exercise a little bit of caution and see what's underneath it. I've heard stories from my cousin where he like mowed over a hornet's nest and like
brutal.
First of all, wrecked their day. Let's think about the hornets first of all, but also ruined his day. So, just resist that urge to like think that you're the king of the lawn and can topple over anything, because the lawn does fight back a little bit, and not everything is ripe for just plowing over it.
Yeah, like while it is a controlled ecosystem, it is still an ecosystem, and you're sharing that space with other beings.
Yeah.
And other things and other interests of people.
You need to establish dominance. You gotta let that lawn know who the heck it's messing with.
Yeah, I also want to touch on something you said, Noah, about push mowers, because my family also had a push mower, but it was mostly just like for an antique of like, oh kids, like if you complain about mowing the lawn, we can always make you use this one and you'll hate it because it's not good at its job. And I've always wanted to find like a decent push mower, because like ideally like we could make push mowers better, because like you can't use them on very long grass, or it just like pushes over it and doesn't quite slice through it. Or some of them, like you do a round of push mowing and then you have to rake up all of your grass clippings because it doesn't like obliterate it, it just like cuts off the top layer like you're using scissors. And like in my head I think like we can make push mowers better, so it doesn't have to just be a gas or electric thing. Like there could be a good old elbow grease version of the thing, and maybe the better version of push mower is a gas or electric one, but I like to think in my magical Christmas land that we can make a purely optimized push mower that doesn't need either one, and you don't have to compromise with other things. But it sounds like they do exist and they still make them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
but
my mom has a modern one that she still uses right now. It's like a Fiskars, is like the scissor company push mower that she just rolls over her lawn.
They're just suited for like you said, smaller lawns and shorter grass. Because that's exactly the problem with them, is that if you try and take it to grass that's too long and too thick, you'll it'll literally just like jam up the blades, and you won't be able to push to rotate the blades to cut. So it is kind of unfortunate because, in my opinion at least, the best version of a push mower, or like the ideal version of a push mower, is an electric / gas mower. But I wouldn't be surprised if, like, they made push mowers even with just like batteries attached to them that you could charge independently, and then also like by pushing it yourself could recoup some of that charge as well, just to aid in the like the spin rate of the blades, so that it can cut more, like taller or thicker grass, or so make it so you won't have to do multiple passes on the same like stretch of your lawn to get all the grass cut. But yeah, I'm honestly, they might exist, those kinds of mowers might exist, they might not, but yeah, and it is just kind of generally a full upgrade to, from a push mower to an electric mower or a battery powered mower or a gas mower, something like that. It's just, yeah.
Just like anything, like we've all been woken up early on a Saturday by a loud leaf blower or gas powered mower.
Oh, those
just
are
outside.
Yeah, those leaf
So
blowers.
annoying.
Leaf blowers are their own class of just unnecessary, and like, get a freaking broom or a rake, please. Like, yeah. But mowers, yeah, it might. I think there's still definitely a market and a legitimate need for like gas mowers too. Like my aunt and uncle own a 100-acre plot of land out close to the Ohio border. Yeah, and that would literally take like a full 12-hour day to mow their entire lawn, like if you were to use a push gas mower or something like that. So they have the tractor kind of deal. But for those of us who don't own 100+ acres, I think a push mower would probably do just fine.
Yeah, well, you heard it here first. I think that's our longest mowing the lawn actual segment, which is frankly embarrassing for a podcast called Mowing the Lawn. All right, we're going to get into our mainline topic, which is mysteries / conspiracy theories. So we're going to talk through some, hypothesize some conclusions, and then see what the experts thought. That's kind of secondary to this whole spiel.
Because they obviously didn't do their job if these are still mysteries.
Yeah, obviously. To this side, who will get the first pick, we're going to be guessing the oldest senator in Australia.
Which, speaking of mysteries to us Americans, the Senate of a country on the other side of our globe, we don't know much about.
Yeah, Pinky promise that we didn't look these up beforehand. Does anyone want to volunteer a guess first?
The one thing that I'm concerned about or nervous about with placing a guess is I'm not sure if there are like term limits or age limits on senators.
Well, as long as we
down under.
all don't know, it's fair.
Yes, right, exactly. It would just suck if, like, I guessed 80, for example, and it's like, oh, it turns out they get kicked out at age 55. That is the maximum age. But yeah, that being said, I'm gonna wager my guess as, I'm going to say 77 years old is the oldest member of Parliament / Senate in Australia.
Okay. And before we make any other guesses, we just want to make sure that it's not Price is Right rules. Like, it's whoever's like closest over or under.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can Price is Right people by guessing 1 year above or below, and it will count, but we will all lose just a little bit of respect.
Yeah. Or if you guess 0. Even more respect lost. I'm gonna think there's some ancient folks on the Australian Senate. I'm gonna go with 85 for my guess.
I'm gonna go with a clean 65.
Oh,
Just to break up the pack a little bit.
good spread.
Should I look this sucker up?
Look it
I'll
up.
look it up.
We also don't know if they're actually called senators.
Yeah, right. What the actual term
what
for
the
for
structure
them
of
is.
their government looks like.
Yeah.
So our answer is Darren Hinch, 72 years, 4 months, 28 days, which would give Noah the nod.
Yeah.
And then
for
Owen and
first
then
place.
myself.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good.
So the way this is going to work is no snake draft. We're just going to go Noah, Owen, Mo down the line. 3 picks each. Hopefully they're nice and mysterious. Noah, kick us off whenever you're ready.
Alrighty. So my first mystery is comes through the vein of like science. It's a scientific mystery that has not been solved, that may never be solved, to be honest.
Ooh.
And that is, how did life on Earth begin? How did we get from organic compounds and molecules and all that to self-replicating life? As a bit of a history, I guess, of our planet Earth, planet Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, and the earliest fossil records we have of life on Earth are 3.7 billion years old. So it's thought and theorized that life may have started even earlier than that, and we just have no record of it. Earth was very geologically active at the time, so there's not really a geological record of what the planet was like at that time, just because everything was changing all the time. The earliest estimates suggest that Earth may have been able to harbor life as early as 4.3 billion years ago, but we do not have that fossil evidence. And when I say life, I mean I'm referring to like single-celled micro animals, not even animals, like single-celled life, because multicellular life did not evolve until 600 million years ago. So there was like 2.1 billion years where life on Earth was just single-celled organisms, which is kind of nuts to think about. So in order to have life, you need a certain combination of ingredients. And for life on Earth, as we know it, that is organic compounds, which are defined as chemical compounds that contain carbon, amino acids, and such stuff like that are building blocks for life as we know it. Life on Earth requires water. So in addition to organic compounds, we need an ample supply of water, and also an energy source. For us, that is the sun. We eat the plants that photosynthesize, or we eat the animals that eat the plants that photosynthesize, and that is how we get our energy. Although there are theories, and I will save like the theories as to the most popular theories as to how life started here until the end, after we guess as to how it could have begun. But it is thought that in addition to the sun being an energy source, that geothermal vents, like near the Earth's crust, where the plate tectonics would shift and move, would also be an ample source of energy. And it has been observed that there are microorganisms that live in those extreme environments, and it is therefore hypothesized that life could have started at those vents. But so that's basically all we needed: organic compounds, water, energy source, and something happened that changed all that from just stuff to self-replicating life.
So the way you could think about this, which is a little bit depressing, is that life is really just an illusion of chemical reactions that happen in like an unpredictable way, that gives you like an illusion of like free choice and like control of your life, but in reality is just like all the atoms in your body reacting to what has happened in the past over and over again. So life is really no different than just like a volcanic eruption. It just like is vastly, infinitely more complicated, which is like horrifying to think about. But if you think of the human body as just like all your atoms mapped out and there's nothing else to it, it's just like a series of chain reactions of those atoms moving around, which gives you like the illusion of life and the illusion of like movement that like maybe a rock can do, but maybe it's not all that different than the experience of life of a rock feels. It's just infinitely less complex.
There's also this concept of chirality, which is, it's like the handedness of molecules to like bond with one another. Because like if we think about like the DNA double helix, right, it is like right-handed in its kind of like rotation, and there's theories that like if that rotation or handedness that life has worked in the opposite direction, we could have ended up like completely and utterly different than how we did. And so the fact that everything kind of like reacts in that way, like without that chirality, like proteins wouldn't have been able to be built, because proteins are built with, you know, the chirality that they have. And if they didn't have that, then there may not even be life at all. And I'm also curious, Mo, because you have a background in biology.
Yeah.
Kind of what you know about it, or what you've like learned about it in school, and also just like your thoughts and background on it.
Well, personally, like molecular biology and like philosophical biology is not what I focused on in school, but this is sort of like bringing the question something that's like the creation of life and how like fragile it is. With that theory is like life existing outside of Earth, or like perception of life, like just how rare is that, like is it the fact that it exists here just like such a infinitely small creation, and the way atoms align and atoms or like molecules interact with each other, that it is just so random that we are the only life in our universe.
Yeah. One question kind of stemming off of that I have always been pondering is like when I was in 6th grade biology, we were first talking about the advantages of like organisms that reproduce and create new DNA, like they're not self-replicating like a virus, and that there was an evolutionary advantage to an evolutionary advantage, which sounds kind of impossible. Because how do you get an evolutionary advantage from nothing? I mean, I get it. Like if you can create different DNA strings, then you can adapt to your environment in ways that other things can't if you're just self-replicating over and over again. But how does that jump from self-replicating to creating new DNA strands? Like, how did that jump happen?
Yeah, also, I guess it would be like, the advantages of, because like I said earlier, life on Earth for like 2 billion years was single cell organisms, and then the jump all of a sudden to 600 million years ago ish, where multicellular organisms evolved and then exploded into every single plant, animal, living thing that we've ever known, basically, or has ever existed. I don't know. I'm not a biologist. I'm not a molecular biologist. I'm not a scientist even. Like, this is just stuff that I find interesting. So I'm no expert, but I know that in the DNA replication process, things can just randomly flip. Like, genes can like just randomly, for seemingly no reason, flip during the copy process, and the copy process is not always 100%. And that's, I think, if I had to throw out a guess as to just from what I know, why then different mutations appeared even in like the earliest forms of life, and then when those mutated DNA strands get copied, of course they carry on those mutations. So if I had to put a guess on it, I'd say DNA, like I said, during the copy process, something just randomly switched, like a gene randomly switched, and that led to mutations, which then led to evolutionary advantages and things like that.
Yeah, just the way like proteins are processed and replicated, it happens literally millions of times a second, and then for those things to happen that frequently, that often, even with 99.9% precision, there is going to be errors and plenty of errors, and that will create deviations, and then deviations will be given a chance to thrive. And then 600 million or billion years ago, when there was that big bloom,
Million
was
million,
right.
Yeah.
When there was that big bloom, it was when those like single-celled organisms found the way to make oxygen, and that allowed so much more freedom for energy creation and just like genetic diversity to flourish in that time.
Yeah, it's something, if any of you have read the book Three Body Problem, I haven't seen the show so I can't speak to it, but in the book, one of the main things that they mess with is scientists finding things that are actually completely random and trying to make sense out of it, because like true randomness I don't think ever actually happens even in like a computer simulation. It's not like truly random. It's still like a computer simulator making it. And that's like, I think a good benchmark of like science as a whole is like finding things that appear to be completely random and then like slowly and meticulously making them more and more predictable. And they're never going to be completely predictable, obviously. We're just like narrowing it down through physics, chemistry, and biology. But they like come across things that are like truly random and they can't make sense of them, and how that like damages their psyche and perception of the world, which is funky. And a lot of how it feels like we became things instead of single cell organisms, or just little, what are they called, what's the oldest like organism that's still around, like the hermit, those like, they've got like a big head. I'm drawing something out, the viewers can't watch it, but like
horseshoe crabs?
Yeah, horseshoe crabs.
Yeah.
That are like supposedly around since the beginning and are already evolutionarily perfect.
Yeah.
So they don't bother changing at all. Kind of like alligators too.
There are actually like a few species of animals that haven't been, or that have been around not since like the beginning, but have been around for like hundreds of millions of years. Like for one of my favorites is since I love fishing, like the long-nosed gar. And there's a fish called the bowfin that, they look nothing like each other, but they are the closest living relatives to each other because they evolved so early, like, hundreds of millions of years ago, and have survived to this present day, where they are basically like, living fossils, like as they were, more or less unchanged, because, evolution, just sometimes hits the nail on the head for some animals, and it's like, well, we don't need to change anything. Like, we've literally got it down. So, but those are super cool. Just to add to what you're saying, like I love stuff like that.
And like people kind of say that like humans are like the evolutionary pinnacle, but there are some animals that develop evolutionary advantages that I think are way cooler than anything humans can do. Like those frogs that freeze themselves for like a decade. And then work their way back. I think those are super cool, and I'd like to learn how to do that. Or like how jellyfish literally will not die unless they get sick or are just like physically destroyed by something, and otherwise they just like operate in almost perfect simple harmonic motion or harmony, and their cells like perfectly regenerate. I don't know if I'm talking out of my ass right now.
No, that's true, because jellyfish technically aren't one organism. They're just like a cluster of little individual cells that work together, which is why they will survive like that, because just like when one comes off, another one takes its place. It's pretty cool. And it is like, it's sort of like our brain telling us that it's the most important part of our body. Like,
I've heard that it's either alligators or crocodiles that also can like live to a pretty obscene age if they don't get sick or are destroyed. I don't think it's
fucking tortoise.
Tortoises, yeah. Is it tortoise?
I don't think so. I think it's just like
it's actually torton. I got a horde of torton.
Yeah, there are like I know about the coelacanth. Coelacanth. The type of fish where people only thought of it as like a dinosaur fish that doesn't exist anymore. Like they only knew it from fossils. And then like kind of recently, like in the 80s or something, they found a living one, and they found out they're like a fish that is still alive from like prehistoric times. Because it's just chilling the way it is.
Yeah, their environments are like deep rocky caves, so it was really like a lot of that was just technological inefficiencies that we like literally couldn't get to where they were living. So
Yeah.
we just thought that they didn't exist, and then we finally were able to get to where they actually live and found one. And it's like, oh, they're not dead.
Yeah.
They're still here. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Like
Right.
Henry Kissinger.
Well, he's dead, thank God.
Is
R.I.P.
he? It's not just what they want. So this is the conspiracy podcast after all.
That is true.
I do think this is a great pick. Like, it's such like an inherent part of our existence that I
Mhm.
didn't even consider that as like an unsolved mystery because we will never know it, and that's sort of
Mhm.
something that I've come to terms with. But yeah, that is
Yeah.
something that no one knows, no one will really ever know.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating that
Yeah.
possibility is out there.
I'd actually put this down as too good because I had this one written down and then I crossed it off because I was too scared to talk about it. And then I brought on a freaking co-host.
Sorry, not sorry. But yeah, no, the day, if it ever happens that someone creates self-replicating life in a lab from organic molecules, they will win every scientific achievement known to mankind.
Yeah.
So that would be huge, but I do not expect this to be solved within our lifetime.
Also sounds like a freaking Black Mirror episode.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, are we done talking about existentialism, or can we move on to our next mystery?
Owen, what do you got?
All right. So I went in a much different direction with my first pick. I'm going to tell you all a little story about the Solder children. So,
Okay.
close your eyes. You don't actually have to close your eyes. I'm just gonna
Mine are closed.
just gonna tell you a little story. So there's the Solder family. The father owns. They're Italian immigrants. They live in West Virginia in the 1940s. Is when they moved there. So the father owns a trunking company and is like very known in their community. It's like a very strong Italian community and is like has a good standing in the community, but is well known for being anti-Mussolini in a time where Mussolini was obviously in power during the 1940s. He's got 10 children too.
Golly, busy.
For all variety of ages too, like down from a 2-year-old up to an 18-year-old son. So, quite the strong standing in the community. Typical American dream fashion. He like moves to West Virginia, gets a job, builds up a nice house, raises a family. Part of his day-to-day upgrades for his house is he gets a new fuse box. And while he gets a new fuse box, the guy installing it says, "Boy, it's a really good thing you're getting a new fuse box because this old one was like about to start a fire any second. Like, I'm serious. It was going to start a fire any second. It's really good you get a new fuse box." So he says, that's like ominous for no reason whatsoever. I'm going to go about my day. A couple days later, an insurance guy comes to the house and tries to sell them homeowners insurance on the house. And he's a little bit skeptical about door-to-door salesmen, so he like shuts him down pretty hard. And then the guy says to him in a pretty threatening way, "Your house is going to burn down someday, and it's going to like cause your children to die. Like, you should get homeowners insurance." Which like already like, my children die. I don't give a shit about my house, but
Yeah.
like they're not
No kidding.
protecting me.
No kidding.
But also, he's a known pro-Mussolini guy, which
The salesman.
the salesman.
Okay.
So, a little bit of conflict there. The last little piece of evidence is their children are walking home from school one day and they see a man in a car who's like watching and following them the entire way home. Like they like drive up a little bit, watch him with binoculars, drive up a little bit, watch him with binoculars. We're going to jump forward a couple weeks to Christmas Eve. They're one of those families that lets their kids open up their presents on Christmas Eve. That was never my family, but it's their family. I just throwing it out there. Pet peeve of mine, I guess.
It's a European thing.
It's a European thing that they brought to this country. Anyways, so their mother and father are both exhausted from, the mother having to raise 10 kids, the father with his trucking company. So they recognize that their kids are having fun. These are specifically the 5 youngest kids, because the older ones didn't get any Christmas presents because they grew out of it. But the 5 youngest ones were all staying up late, playing with their presents, and usually that would be a huge red flag, but it's whatever. It's Christmas Eve. They go to bed and figure they can go back to bed. Importantly, where they sleep is in the attic, so it's all the way at the top of the house. They're currently at the first floor, but when they put themselves to bed, they go all the way to the attic. The mother wakes up in the middle of the night to the phone ringing. Picks up the phone. It sounds like a party on the other side, and she's like, "Hello, who this?" And all she hears is this maniacal cackling on the line, like a really menacing laugh, and then requests to talk to someone that doesn't live at the house. And the mother's confused, that person doesn't live here. And then again, it's just a maniacal cackling. It sounds like a party's going on. She can barely hear what it is. And he's like, "Sorry, wrong number." Just hangs up. While she's up, she notices that all the kids are knocked out, asleep, downstairs, just sawing logs. All the lights are on, and the door is unlocked and ajar. But she just thinks it's just the kids being dumb kids. But it's a little curious because she raised her kids right to put yourselves to bed, do all the things she needs to do. So she wakes them up and tells them need to go to sleep, locks the doors, turns off all the lights. The next thing, this is about an hour later, she wakes up to smoke coming from out underneath the door. There's smoke everywhere. So she rushes to get everyone she can, notices that the fuse box and the telephone are both on fire.
Ooh.
Tries to get everyone out. Gets everyone out, but they realize that the only people that aren't outside the burning house are the 5 youngest children. So then the dad freaks out, runs back in, assumes that they're in the attic and put themselves to sleep. There's a wall of fire on the stairs. No way he can get up there. Tries to climb up a wall and cuts his arm really bad on a window, to the point that he's losing consciousness. So he doesn't do that. Tries to find a ladder. It's not where they usually put it, which is also a little bit odd. So he's out of desperation, I'm going to get to one of my trucks, because I have a trucking company, and just back it up next to the house, climb up that. All the trucks don't work. Literally all of them. This is someone that trucks for a living, was trucking earlier.
Relies on those trucks to work.
Relies on those trucks to work. Was using them not even that long ago. None of them work. They try to just sneak inside, use the telephone, and the telephone doesn't work. Not only does their telephone not work, but none of their neighbors' telephone works. Someone has to drive 10 minutes into town just to call the fire department. And that's the saddest part of this whole story, is they really have no way to get up to the attic to save their kids, so they just watch their house burn down to the ground, and the fire department shows up probably 7 or 8 hours later in the morning and puts it down. But the spookiest part about all of this is they go through all the ashes and they can't find a shred of evidence of the 5 soldered children anywhere. No bones. No, I guess that would be the only thing left, but no bones.
Yeah.
Dang.
Man, I'm not going to be able to go to sleep tonight.
Just not in the attic.
Yeah.
It's turned to spooky story time.
So, yeah, that's kind of
But there's no confirmation that they put those kids to bed.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the next part, is figuring out what happened to the 5 kids. So there's a little bit of fact pattern into what people think happened, or do you want to try to guess first, or do you want to hear the rest of the fact pattern?
Well, I think it was probably a hit, right? By a pro-Mussolini
That's what
organization.
The family thinks too, is that this is Italian bad blood, and that's also probably what the police think. But because of that, they want no part in it, and they just rule it
Uh,
the kids died in the fire and close the book and never reopen it. And the family even reaches out to the FBI and asks to get like some special assistance. But at that time, the FBI didn't have jurisdiction into citizen cases unless the police department specifically asked for it. So if the police department closes the books, they're closed.
FBI is screwed.
so they think maybe the kids were kidnapped.
Yeah, that's so like the optimistic one is that the kids were kidnapped or not kidnapped, but they like found a way to run out and just like got lost or something like beforehand.
Picked up elsewhere.
Yeah. I guess that would have to be the case because, like, you know, you don't have to run. You obviously want to keep your distance from a burning house, but you don't have to run like that far to the point where you lose all sense of where you are.
Especially if your parents are outside.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But also, like, I don't know, but how hot house fires gets and how hot human bone disintegrates at or whatever.
Well, so human bone has to disintegrate at 2,000 degrees for several hours.
Yeah.
And a house might get that hot, but their house like was burned to ashes within 45 minutes.
Yeah, like it's that old style.
Yeah, and that's if
basically.
it gets up to 2,000, which it probably doesn't.
Yeah, you need a significant amount of fuel to get that hot.
Yeah.
So there's a couple other bits of like circumstantial evidence. Someone who was driving a bus next to their house claims that they saw someone standing outside and like throwing something onto the roof
Like that night.
that caught on fire, which doesn't exactly line up with the fuse box lighting up.
Yeah.
But I mean, they were basically like threatened that their house was going to burn.
Yeah.
down.
Did anyone look into that, like, fuse
Door-to-door.
box company and
Yeah.
the telephone, or was it TV or telephone?
It was the fuse box.
The fuse box.
Yeah, I mean, all that I can see is that they ruled it like accidental fire by fuse box, even though they got a brand new one.
Yeah.
Unless the guy was also in on it and
Installed it incorrectly.
Shifty
on
one or one
purpose
that's-
and just like twisted the knife a little bit by saying, "Good thing you installed this fuse box.
Yeah.
Otherwise, your house is gonna catch on fire." But yeah, like the case was officially closed, and that's kind of the other saddest part of the story is that whole family spent the rest of their lives looking for the 5 Sauter children. Like legitimate, like the youngest child that survived died in 2021. She was in her 90s,
Oh man.
and even into her 90s, she was still messaging people on boards because the 5 siblings would be younger than her, so she
Yeah.
felt like they'd still be worth
Yeah.
looking
Looking
for.
for.
But it was like they could not
Damn.
stop
Wow.
looking for him.
Wow. Damn, that's
Yeah.
tragic
It's a spooky one for sure.
and spooky. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so people thought it was some sort of mafia affiliation. A lot of it was the outspoken criticism of Mussolini, but there's just like not enough to bite on, because like even if you are outspokenly criticizing Mussolini, like what person lights your house on fire because of
Yeah.
it?
To
Like they're
kill
just
10
like
children.
like that. You're right that is like the most likely thing if you don't believe it's an accident, because there's never meant to be
Yeah.
children. But it's just like bizarre enough that there's not enough to like really latch onto.
And also, where are the bones? Where's the evidence that
Yeah.
those kids
Yeah.
died in that fire?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Spooky.
Also-
What year was this?
This was in 1945 on Christmas Eve.
Dang.
Mhm.
I will say to your comment earlier about opening presents on Christmas Eve, as someone who has a German mother, that was our Christmas tradition as well. We opened up our presents on Christmas Eve and not Christmas Day. So it's not as unusual as you may think. It may be unusual for the States, but in other parts of the world, it's not.
So what'd you do on Christmas morning then?
Played with all the stuff we got on Christmas Eve. Duh.
What'd you do on Christmas Eve then? You just open it and go to bed?
Well, no, we would open presents probably around like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that. So we had plenty of time to open up all of our stuff, and then we'd have a really nice dinner right afterwards too, and then spend the rest of the evening playing with all our presents and toys, and then go to sleep dreaming about them, only to wake up and keep it going.
Yeah, I had a cousin that was born on the 23rd, and a cousin that was born on the 24th.
Oh.
So we always celebrate their birthday on the 24th.
Mhm.
So that night it was about them.
Man.
And then Christmas we had.
That is
opened
a
up all
back
our
to back
presents.
to back.
Yeah, it was for sure. It was fun. It was a festive time of year.
Nice.
For sure.
Very nice. But yeah, I definitely like how you went in a completely different direction with the mystery part than I did. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to fall asleep tonight. That's spooky.
Just
don't sleep in the attic.
Yeah.
Don't get in trouble with the mafia, I guess.
Right. My first mystery takes place in Australia in 1948 on a beach near Adelaide. Don't know who was the oldest person in Parliament back then, but they probably weren't as old as 72. So in the early morning, they find a man in a relaxed position, just laying on the beach. A lot of people thought he was just like a drunk guy or just someone sleeping on the beach hanging out, but they eventually determined that he was dead. And this is the story of the Somerton Man, also known as Taman Chud, who is still unidentified to this day. The autopsy at the time, performed in 1948, was unable to determine like a specific cause of death. He had like inflamed organs, but it wasn't like for sure based on their technology that it was like poisoning or a suicide or an overdose of any sort. He had no identifications on him, nothing in his pocket except for a torn out piece of a book that had the phrase Taman Chud on it, which is Persian for "it's over" or "it is finished." And they determined that this little scrap of paper was from a specific rare version of a published 12th century Persian poem. And it was just this phrase. So they searched for this man's, like, how he got there. And also police were looking for, like, this missing other part of this book that had that page ripping up, because there was only so many of these copies, so many in Australia, that had, like, based on that font in the margins, that phrase Taman Chud in it. Eventually, like a week later, they found a suitcase in the train station that had a piece of threading, like sewing kit in it, that matched a repair on the man's clothing that they found him in. So they determined that it was him, and it had just like his normal travel stuff, but it also had a table knife, like a butter knife, sharpened to be a weapon, and then scissors with points sharpened to be extra sharp than what they normally are.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is.
And like, yeah, like they weren't really able to like, determine what ethnicity this man was or where he's from. One thing that the autopsy noted was that he had like feet and like calf muscles that were like for that someone to develop those sort of like characteristics, they would have had to have been a dancer for a long time, like ballet dancer.
Interesting.
And then around a month later, a cab driver found a book in his back seat that was that copy of that 12th century poem with that page missing from it, with that like torn off last word missing from it, and next to it they found a code written, like an encryption of like various letters, like in the margins next to where that passage was ripped out from. And to this day, no one has been able to crack that code, mainly because they don't know what language it's in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's already a very complex code, and not knowing like the native language of it, it's like almost impossible to figure out what it says. And that's really like all everyone knows. The body was unfortunately embalmed pretty early on after it was found, so it's hard to this day get DNA from it to like figure out who he's related to. They did take a bust of his face, and like the plaster they used to take the bust has like a little bit of hair in it that they were able to use later to sort of determine what the man's genetic makeup was, but that's really all they know about it, and it still to this day goes unsolved. There's a few theories, but if you guys want to guess to what it is.
So it like sounds like like as a serial killer is like has like obsession compulsive like motives and stuff, but it's like that but just for one person,
Yeah.
and like really did their homework on covering their tracks. So it's like a super duper it's like 0th degree murder because it's like 1st degree murder but even more planned out.
Yeah.
It's hard to like, I'm like stuck in motive mode. It's hard to like really think of something without knowing like literally anything about
Yeah.
the victims.
That's why it's so, and like also that being like in the 40s, like forensic investigation is so different from what we know as it is today that it's hard to sort of like use the same tools to figure out what happened.
Yeah, I'm kind of in Owen's camp, as in that I just can't really think of a reason of like why or what even.
So the language, is it like, does it have like an alphabet we recognize in a different order, or
It's written like it's Latin characters, like the characters we
Okay.
know, but we just don't know like
what?
what language it is. Like the poem is in Persian, but they've obviously tried Persian and it doesn't work with it. And this is why it's so interesting to me, because it just seems so random and so out of the blue. It could be such a simple explanation that was just like some drunk Australian guy that like was obsessed with this poem or whatever, or had some beef with someone. But my favorite theory is that he's a Russian spy, because there was a Russian ballet group performing in the area at the time, like a KGB agent pretending to be a ballet dancer that was just in there at the time. And Adelaide does have a uranium mine and a weapons testing center nearby that the Russians could have been interested in, and which would also explain why it's such like a weird death, like covered up pretty well. Like it was KGB agents that knew what they were doing, knew how to make it like untraceable.
So was it a KGB hit or just someone that was taking out like a personal grievance but knew exactly how to do it?
We
I guess
don't
that's
know.
the question.
Yeah, and like both are entirely plausible, especially for the time. But yeah, this is one that I remember reading about in a book I got at the Scholastic Book Fair, and that it's just what I think about when I think of unsolved mysteries. Is this man on the Australian beach that had a weird little phrase of a poem in his pocket.
Yeah. It's almost like if it is an official KGB hit, it had to be pretty special because they never did it again.
Yeah.
So they
One and done.
They learned not to be sloppy with it.
Yeah.
Leave a man on a beach for everyone to find.
Well, even when they were sloppy, they're good enough to so
Yeah.
that no one knows what the hell happened. Man,
There's some guy.
that is really interesting. Especially the part where they, were able to just figure out, based on his muscle structure and his legs, that ballet dancer specifically.
And also that there was that code right there that
Mhm.
no one's been able to solve since.
Yeah, like who the heck knows?
Like
what-
why were all these letters written on a page? Like you can look it up, like the little poem that they found in the book, and it is just like a jumble of words. Some of them are crossed out, and it's just like I don't know even know how to begin solving that.
Man, okay.
Yeah, man. It's a good thing the KGB went away and all their members just decided to do good things and not use their powers for evil, and certainly didn't run for any political
And
office
certainly didn't kill Alexei Navalny and nothing
and
like that.
invade the sovereign state of Ukraine.
Nope.
I'm sorry, this isn't a political podcast. Yeah, that's why we're saying it's a good thing that didn't happen.
Yeah. Imagine the world.
Exactly, right, precisely. My next pick is also like a scientifically based question, as in it's something that's happening currently.
Big science guy over here.
I'm sorry. These are so I definitely I love the fact that unsolved mysteries means different things to, well, I guess me out of the out of this group, but hey, that's I think that's good. So I'm not a scientist, by the way. Again, I need to reiterate that. But something I think about quite often is just space and the sky and astronomy in general. I think astronomy is super freaking cool. And one of the most fascinating things to me is this concept of dark matter and dark energy and what the heck they are. So dark matter and dark energy, from what I've read, are different things. Dark matter is, I've read, more accurately described as dark gravity, because we can't actually see what it is. We only know it's there because it has gravity that interacts with matter that we can see. And an example of this is when it was first, it wasn't discovered because we still don't know what the heck it is, but its existence was first implied back in 1933. There's a Swiss scientist by the name of Fritz Zwicky, sorry, that observed a cluster of galaxies, and the gravitational force that they that's needed to be held together, that cluster to be held together, is measurable, and he did measure it, and then he measured up all the gravity in that cluster, and then basically counted or like added the mass of all the stars in all those galaxies. There's a way you can do that accurately based on like spectrographs. You can get what they're made of. You can see relative density of stars and whatever. There's very sophisticated ways that you can measure masses of galaxies. So he did that, and he realized that the mass of all the stuff that he could see in those galactic clusters only accounted for 1% of the amount of gravity that was being exerted to hold them together. So 99% of the stuff in that cluster or 99% of the gravity of stuff in that cluster is coming from things that we cannot see.
Ooh.
And that is why we know dark matter, quote unquote, exists, because like I said, it exerts gravity, it has gravity, which interacts with the matter that we see. Also, dark matter is like 27%, makes up 27% of all the stuff in the universe. And visible matter is 5%. 5% of all the stuff in the universe is stuff that we can see, or stuff that we can observe, like visible matter. And then quickly, dark energy is this thing that is driving the expansion of the universe. So the universe, for those who are unfamiliar, is expanding and is also accelerating in that expansion. And dark energy is the force or the thing that is driving that expansion. And we have no idea what it is. And that accounts for the other 68% of stuff in our universe. So in total, 95% of the stuff in the universe is stuff that we cannot see.
Yeah. I mean, so one of my biggest frustrations when I was taking high school physics was how gravity as a concept kept changing. So when we were doing Newtonian physics, gravity was just 9.8 meters per second, and it's just that. Don't worry about it. And then when we took astronomy, we were saying, okay, 9.8 is just what it is on Earth. But if we're talking about just anywhere in the entire universe, it's the big G number, which I don't know off the top of my head, but it's like something to the 26th power times radius times whatever.
It's a constant. Gravitational constant, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it's called the gravitational constant of the universe. But it's like still a number and still a force that we measure and can do calculations with. And then when you get to relativity, we find out that it's not a force at all. It's just like a roadmap that the universe follows, in the same way that like if two people on the equator took helicopters or like a big land bridge to the North Pole, they would eventually cross paths and link up. And it's not like a force doing that, it's just like they're traveling straight lines on a curved surface, so they eventually have to meet, even though they're like just walking. And that's what like gravity is to the universe. It's just like the natural lines that it takes. Which is interesting how like dark energy is like the opposite of that, or like, is it? So are you saying that's like the thing that makes the grooves, or is it just like the negative grooves?
It's not, from what I understand, it's the thing that is causing the universe. It's like the force or whatever it is that is causing the universe to expand. There's like the theories around dark energy, if I may get into those without you guessing.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Because to be honest, nobody knows what the heck it is. The theory, like the leading theory, is that it's just the energy that is inherent with empty space. Like empty space has energy, and the vast majority of the universe is empty space. And that's kind of like the best explanation that they can come up with at the moment, is that it's just this property that is inherent to empty space, whereas dark matter is something that doesn't interact with our normal matter except through the gravity that it has, and that's the only way that we know it's there and that it exists, is because it interacts passively through gravity and not actively through, like, because who knows what dark matter is. It's like it could be just like a particle that is like, that never interacts with our normal matter, but not sure. There's like no evidence of that. There's experiments where they like will set up these dark matter detectors like a mile or 2 miles underground. They like go into mines where there's like absolutely zero like interference from the sun or like any outside source or whatever, and they just like are praying that one out of like these billions and billions and billions of hypothetical dark matter particles will pass through their detector, and they will get it, and they'll be like, yes, there it is, like that's what dark matter is. But they have not found anything yet, so it's just this mysterious entity out there that has gravity that doesn't interact with anything that we can see, which makes it kind of a pain in the ass to try and figure out what it is.
But it's still hard to deny that it exists. It does exist.
Yes, it absolutely exists. Because, like the example I gave earlier, there are plenty more where there are like even individual galaxies where you can calculate how much gravity is holding the entire thing together, add up the mass of everything in the galaxy, including the black hole at the center, and you're like, oh, we're 20% of the way there, or something like that. And so it's fairly undeniable that it exists, that it's something. But that's the thing, is that no one knows what on earth. I mean, it's not on Earth. What in the hell it could be, which to me personally fascinates me.
And that it's so many times more a percentage of the makeup of our universe than we are.
Yes,
we know
exactly.
absolutely nothing about it.
Mm-hmm.
It is so scary.
Yeah, it is scary, and I like, it's always like gives you like a little bit of an uncomfy feeling to not be perfectly spatially aware of your surroundings. But it does make me feel good, at least, that that's the thing that I don't know about. But I do like roughly know what the landmass that I live on looks like. Because if I was like an early human and didn't know like what my surroundings look like, or like when I was going to run into the lake, that would terrify me. And I would like spend my whole life like in Minecraft, where you just like keep going and going, and just, like keeps generating. It's a good thing I know I live on a mitten.
Yeah.
And not some other shape.
Some boot or something.
Yeah. Some Wisconsin-looking mitten.
Is that a mitten? I don't know.
They say it's a mitten.
That's one skinny thumb.
It's a mitten.
That's one skinny thumb.
And his fingers are like broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I don't have a lot of stuff to contextualize it with, but
this one
no one does, apparently.
Yeah,
yes.
No one knows.
Right, exactly. This was pretty short in my notes just because of the nature of it, in that we really don't know anything other than it's there, and that's about it.
But in terms of scale, probably the biggest mystery that we know of.
95% of our universe we just don't know shit about.
Until we get to my next mystery.
All right, let's hear it.
All right, so I'm going to go with the incident at Daytov Pass.
Ooh.
So this is another Russian one. I guess the last one wasn't necessarily Russian, but we kind of think it was. So February 1959, 9 ski hikers mysteriously die in the mountains of what is now Russia. The night of the incident, they like set up a tent and a fire they're just enjoying themselves, having a nice night out. But that group was never heard from. They never returned um, until several days later when they finally found the tent. And this is where it gets truly bizarre. The tent was ripped open from the inside. They could tell that it was ripped open, like, violently from the inside. And they could follow the footprints, and they found the hikers like still in their underwear, barefoot. So they like ripped out and just like ran away from whatever was going on in the tent. And they all had very different injuries. Some of them like just died of hypothermia. Some of them had like heavy blunt force trauma, like broken ribs. Others had third-degree burns. One was vomiting blood. One of them was missing a tongue. The other was missing eyeballs. Some of them had radioactive, I don't know, like their clothes were radioactive or giving off radioactive readings. Some doctors say that their injuries were more conducive to like a bomb being let off than anything else, but obviously there's no evidence of a bomb going off other than that their tent was ripped open. So the injuries are just like completely baffling, and that's kind of where it ends. They never like the leading exclamation is that it was an avalanche that kind of rolled over them, and they had to like violently leave their tent all at once, but it doesn't explain all of their injuries to the extent. A common conspiracy theory was that the KGB saw like an opportunity to conduct some experiments on them and just like took it. Another one is that a UFO came on, and that's why there's like a bunch of different injuries because of like that's what aliens do. I don't know. Another popular one is a Yeti got them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeti got me.
But like in like the official medical documents for several of them, it says inhuman force, and that's like all it puts down, which is like terrifying that a doctor wrote it down.
Yeah, but also what happened on that mountain.
Yeah.
It's interesting because the avalanche theory, like how would then the tent have been burst open from the inside if it was an avalanche?
Well, the idea is that like it rolled over on top of them and they couldn't unzip the tent.
Oh,
so
I see.
They ripped it open out of like sheer panic.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, this one was on my it was on the periphery of my picks, so I don't have too much research on it, but it is definitely a spooky one. I also have the fact that one of them was found with a camera around his neck.
Oh, right.
And they looked at the film in it, and all of it was like way overexposed. Like there was too much energy or light around those. Like, why would he take a bunch of overexposed photos? Like, and why did he have the camera around his neck? He was one of the guys that was found in his underwear. Like, why do you have his camera around his neck, but not like the rest of his clothes in the mountains?
That damn KGB, man.
And there was another camping crew 30 miles away that saw bright orange lights, like, in that general direction. But, like, do you trust them? Also, what do those bright orange lights mean? Is that aliens? Is that KGB experiments? Or is it just people not knowing what they're seeing?
Maybe they happened upon, like, a natural gas deposit that caught fire or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, that seems more plausible than aliens, but, you know, these are unsolved mysteries, so who knows?
Interesting that the KGB shows up yet again.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Well, I was going to say KGB infamous with keeping people alive in very happy ways. Yeah, so the thing I was kind of keeping towards the end is the mountain is literally called Dead Mountain in whatever native language Detolv is. So lesson number 1 is don't pitch a tent on Dead Mountain and expect to
survive.
So be putting oxygen in your lungs the next day, as they say. Yeah, the missing tongue and eye thing, like some people were like they had their face down in running water and it just like eroded them out quickly or like increased the decomposition, but I don't know how plausible that is.
Yeah,
that
and also like
also spooky.
We don't know the timeline in which they died. It could have been like something cannibal, like they were trying to survive, or we don't know because yes, like people were found. They weren't found until like weeks after they were lost in the mountains in the first place, and then the second party away from the site weren't found until even later.
Yeah.
I think it wouldn't be entirely unlikely that some sort of animal, especially if they like gotten stuck in the snow and died, that things are gonna find out about that. Like just the natural wildlife or the bacteria or whatever are gonna eventually congregate. So I guess it could have been like some animal or just some like flesh-eating bacteria.
Or Yeti.
I was just gonna say like a Yeti. I was gonna say it. Or the KGB.
KGB. Or the Yeti working for the KGB.
And the aliens.
But also because this happened in like Soviet Russia, even though it happened in the 50s, like no one knew about it until like the 90s.
Oh,
like
man.
the early 90s. So like it's even harder to go back and look at the facts of it all because the Soviet Russians kept it in secret for so long until their downfall, basically.
All I'm saying is whenever I go and the coroner writes down inhuman injuries down, I think life well spent. I think we made it.
Inhuman injuries.
Yeah, my vote's Yeti.
Solid theory. I've got nothing better.
That's my theory for dark matter too.
Yetis.
Yeti.
Nice. My dark matter theory is KGB.
For my next pick, I'm gonna go with the Chicago Tylenol murders from 1982. And this one is one that I really like just because it's such an impactful set of murders and such a high-profile set of murders to go unsolved for so long that it's just crazy in the whole scheme of things. It happened in the metro area of Chicago in 1982, where at least 7 people died from consuming Tylenol capsules laced with potassium cyanide, and this is just Tylenol that they bought off the shelf from like their local Walgreens or whatever. And this was obviously before the era of like the metal seal on top with the cotton ball and like the child-proof caps where anyone could literally just go into a Walgreens, take open the Tylenol, replace a capsule with cyanide, and then put it back on the shelf for people to consume. So in the early fall of 1982, 7 people separately died in Chicago from cyanide poisoning after thinking it was Tylenol. There was one case where a family had gone to like mourn another family that had died from Tylenol cyanide poisoning, gone home to their house. 2 of them had headaches. They took Tylenol, and then both those people died from the poisoned Tylenol. And no one knows who did this. There's a couple theories. One of them was that this man, James W. Lewis, was arrested because around the same time he had written a letter to Johnson & Johnson, who manufactures Tylenol, demanding $1 million to stop the killings. And this is before everything happened, but the general consensus on this is that he's a known person for doing mail fraud, and the bank account he had linked to this demand was someone that used to employ his wife. So his claim was that he was using this to embarrass his wife's former employer and not actually linked to the Tylenol killings. And he did serve 12 years, but that was for extortion, not for being linked to these killings. My favorite theory has to do with U of M grad Ted Kaczynski, also known as
fucking U of M grad,
also known as the Unabomber. Because he was very active around this time, the early 80s, and part of his manifesto, a big part of it, was anti-drug company and against the whole pharmaceutical industry for for manipulating people's perception of what real life is. So that's why he was one of them, despite him denying any link to this. But the real kicker for me for the Unabomber is that he grew up in Chicago area, and the different stores that they found these tainted Tylenol bottles were all within a 20-minute drive of his parents' house at the time.
Oh.
And like, if you look at a map, they're all like, his parents' house is in a central location of all these places.
Yeah. That does. So what is his ultimate goal then? Is that like people die from taking Tylenol and then they just stop taking it?
Yeah, and like it paints Johnson & Johnson, like big drug companies, in like a poor way.
I feel like if you were anti-drug, then you should just try to expose the already horrible things about the drug companies. And
that wasn't the Unabomber's method, though. He also sent literal bombs to
I suppose.
to university workers.
Unfair to demand reason out of someone that unreasonable.
It's literally insane, yeah.
Yeah, it also just is like a freaky thing of like how, like, obviously like serial killers exist to have like a clear methodology and like, you know, of who they want to harm or whatever. But there are also people that just want to do random acts of violence, and that's what they get off on.
And to do it in such a malicious way, something that people have so much trust in drugs, and to like do it in such a violent way that changes the way those products are packaged forever, and the way we like deal with them. That also, like, the first stories of Halloween candy being poisoned started that Halloween after this all happened, because that just like broke the public trust of like what has poison in it.
Yeah.
It's like such a big act of domestic terror that is still unsolved.
Yeah. Until you mentioned the Unabomber potential connection there, it kind of sounded like someone at the distribution place or at the bottling, you know, wherever Tylenol bottled their stuff back in the day, just kind of went rogue and threw a couple cyanide capsules into the bottles, or like a couple Tylenol capsules laced with cyanide, and just, you know, wherever they went, and they ended up being in Chicago. But
yeah, there is also, they did like the full investigation found that the bottles that they were found in were from two different manufacturing plants. Like there was one in like Tennessee or something, and then one somewhere else.
Okay.
So yeah, it was something they determined. They knew for sure that it was something that happened once they reached the stores.
Okay. Yeah.
Unless it was a larger conspiracy.
Yeah, it goes all the way to the top. I don't know who Johnson & Johnson are, but
KGB.
Hey, not
probably.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but taking pills is already like a little bit freaky deaky after all you learn about the opioid crisis, even the things that aren't, you know, inherently addictive. Just like in the back of your mind, like they've screwed over the public before, they'll do it again. But, you know, just it takes it to another level of how much you distrust the pharmaceutical industry, except for Pfizer, who has never done anything wrong.
Yeah, they will never dump anything into the Kalamazoo River.
Yeah. Especially not recently.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but when I got my Pfizer vaccine, I was like, we shop local.
I got Moderna, so.
Yeah, me too.
I think we both got ours together.
Yeah,
right?
we did.
To each other, actually.
Yeah.
Yes. I put the needle in Mo, and he put. Okay, I'm gonna stop.
Yeah, it's super weird when I got my vaccine, because they didn't give me a card or anything afterwards, or like write anything out. They just like heated up this liquid in a little spoon and put it in me, but I felt great afterwards.
And it was just behind like the post office downtown, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they said it'd be free, and it was $50.
Oh,
damn.
But
I don't know if Pfizer works like that.
Yeah, must be some good stuff.
That's why they're billionaires.
All right, from my two science-y related picks, and your Russian and Chicago picks, I'm gonna go in a completely different direction, and my third and final pick for Unsolved Mysteries is, why didn't the Seattle Seahawks run the football in Super Bowl 49? And let me explain as to why this is my pick. So, Super Bowl 49 occurred on February 1st, 2015 in Glendale, Arizona at the University of Phoenix Stadium. It was the New England Patriots versus the defending champ, Seattle Seahawks. The game was close throughout the entire game, pretty much. It was within one score until the fourth quarter, where the Patriots were down 24-14. During the fourth quarter, the Patriots scored 2 touchdowns and gained the lead, 28-24. The Seattle Seahawks had the ball from like pretty close to their own goal line to start the drive, but worked their way downfield, and eventually got first and goal on the 5-yard line with 45 seconds left. The next play after that was a 4-yard Marshawn Lynch run to get him to the 1-yard line with like 25 seconds to go. They were bleeding the clock. They had 2 timeouts. The Seahawks had 2 timeouts. The Patriots had 2 timeouts. The Seahawks had 1. But the Seahawks wanted to bleed clock so that if they scored, the Patriots would get the ball back with as little time on the clock as possible. So here is where the play call comes in. Second and goal from the 1-yard line. Seattle has on their team Marshawn Lynch, who led the NFL that season in rushing touchdowns with 13 and was 4th overall in rushing yards, 1,306. And they needed just 1 yard, which out of the 24 carries that Marshawn Lynch had in Super Bowl 49, 22 of them were for at least a gain of 1 yard. Instead, what happened was that they chose to run a pass play, the Seahawks, which was intercepted by the Patriots' Malcolm Butler at the goal line and effectively killed the Seahawks' chances of winning back-to-back Super Bowls. To add insult to injury, they on the next possession, on the first snap that New England had the ball, Seattle got an encroachment penalty, which gave New England 5 yards from their 1-yard line. Got them to the 6. The next snap, they took a knee, but a Seahawks player rushed the Patriots line, causing a brawl and causing that Seahawks player to get ejected, and the Patriots gained a further 15 yards on an unsportsmanlike penalty call. And yeah, the Seahawks lost the game. This play call is considered one of the worst in the history of the NFL and has been completely slammed, even by the commentators of the game. Chris Collinsworth, of all people, Chris freaking Collinsworth, when the Seahawks were at first and goal on the 5-yard line, said, "Now you just have to stop Marshawn Lynch if you're the Patriots." And the Seahawks were like, "We'll do you one better."
We'll stop it.
Yes. Exactly. And yes, this play has gone down in infamy, and to this day, no one knows why they called a pass play with one of the best running backs, and only a need of a 1-yard gain.
Yeah, just to nail the point down even further, like the thing that Marshawn Lynch is really good at is getting at least 1 yard. Like he's really good at taking contact, going forward, and just like not going backwards. So it was like really just like a golden situation. The conspiracy theory that I've heard behind it is that Pete Carroll really wanted Russell Wilson to win MVP of that or Super Bowl MVP of that game, and was afraid that Marshawn Lynch would win it if they ran it in, and it would be like, I don't know, like not showing that like, Russell, you're like the top priority of this team. Like we're still just like a running team that also plays good defense. So it's like a favor to him. You let him like throw the winning touchdown.
Was it worth it?
It was not. There's another conspiracy I heard around it that the reason why a run wasn't called was because Pete Carroll was in a similar situation to that in 2006 when he was the head coach of USC, and he chose to run the ball, which ultimately cost USC the Rose Bowl that year. So the theory is that he had some PTSD.
Baggage.
The numbers, Pete. What do the numbers mean? And he chose to draw up a pass play instead of, giving the best or one of the best running backs in the entire NFL, the football to gain 1 yard and score the game-winning touchdown.
Where is this all in relation to Deflategate? Was this the same season?
This was not the same season. Actually, the Patriots had not won a Super Bowl prior to this one for 10 years. And it was funny because I was watching the highlights for this game while doing research for this, and they were talking about Tom Brady possibly retiring. And this was back in 2014, which I thought was pretty funny in hindsight. But yeah, no, this is from my knowledge unrelated to Deflategate. And I guess the most likely theory is that it's just sheer incompetence from the offensive coordinator or Pete Carroll or both that led to the tragic result for Seattle that and I would argue for America as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd like to think that there's some conspiracy behind it.
Just to give Pete Carroll just a little bit of benefit of the doubt. I don't know much about football, but there is like a rock, paper, scissors element to it, depending on like what play you call versus what the defense calls. Like some plays just beat whatever plays, even if they don't make any sense in the moment. Like the Lions head coach, Dan Campbell, is a really big fan of like running a weird run play on 3rd and 10, which is usually like a big passing down just because it catches the defense completely by surprise and just like works for no reason. So like maybe it's because it's such a bad idea, it becomes a good idea again because the defense isn't ready for it. But obviously in this case, he chose rock and the defense chose paper and got folded all over. Yeah, good mystery. He still has a job though, so who's really winning?
But have we considered if Pete Carroll is KGB?
Yeah. Have we considered that Pete Carroll was betting on the Patriots that whole Super Bowl?
Or his accountant?
Oh yeah, exactly.
This podcast is sponsored by DraftKings.
FanDuel dropped us as we were recording. Shout out to DraftKings.
If you need help and you think you have a gambling problem, please get it.
Not actually sponsored, by the way.
But yeah, that is that play is so famous for like why did the Seahawks run it?
Yeah.
Or not run it. But yeah, I didn't know it could potentially go all the way to the top.
Yep.
Who knows?
It just seemed too obvious.
Yeah.
They tried to get fancy with it, I guess. I don't know. But it's too obvious to the point where it's like, why wouldn't you? And when there must have been outside factors that influenced their decision to not run the ball with Marshawn Lynch. That's all I'm saying.
Crazy.
But not as crazy as this next one. I'm going real old school with this one. This one is all the way back to the 1780s. This is the Mary Celeste ghost ship mystery. So, got a captain, and he's bringing a cargo of alcohol from New York to Italy, so across the Atlantic. And there's a little bit of extra stuff going on because he's also bringing his family, namely his wife and son, along with this voyage because he's feeding 2 birds with 1 scone. He's visiting his family in Italy and also bringing some cargo in. So he's taking extra precautions for this. So his crew is people that he's like handpicked that are like close friends and also very, very, very competent in what they do. They're like the most experienced sailors he can find. He's already put off this voyage by a couple weeks because he didn't like the way the weather looked. I don't know how accurate like weather is back in those days, but I guess he didn't like whatever was on the newscast that morning on Good Morning America, so he put it off a little bit. Anyways, he takes off, and the ship never makes it to Italy. They find the ship 500 miles and 2 weeks past the most recent captain's log. So you can guess it's been abandoned for about 2 weeks. But 500 miles is also, it's been like drifting for a long time. There's some minor damage, but nothing too major. There are some like splits in the hull. There's some water in the hull because it had a damaged water pump. It's not like a worrying amount of water, but it is like getting in. There's no lifeboats, and the captain's belongings are scattered, but just a little bit, including his sword. The other things that are missing is a sextant, a chronometer, a navigation book, and the ship's register, which I'm not like a huge sailor person, but those are all the things you would need to navigate back in those days. Instead of your Google Maps app, you bring all of those things and you can chart your way across the water. But other than that, like all of the crew, the husband and wife, the kid are all missing. All of their belongings are still like packed up. None of the provisions were taken with. They're just gone. So they're, yeah. I think I'll just leave it at that. See if you can want to take any guesses.
So how long was it after the last captain's log that they found the ship?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks and 500 miles off course.
Yeah. And no lifeboats were there, and all the navigation equipment was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
So just to add a couple more details.
And no dead bodies?
No dead bodies. The no signs of like struggle either. Like they thought they found blood on the captain's sword, but it was just like residue on it.
And the shit was scattered, but just like maybe they were just packing fast.
But that's the thing is that like all the crew's belongings were still like all the way packed up.
Oh.
Like they didn't even try to bring any of the crew's personal belongings. So just a couple extra details is the ship that did find it immediately like brought the ship into port and reported it to the authorities and collected the like salvage reward. That was like a thing back in the days. If you found some like stuff and you didn't steal it and you brought it in, you got like some reward money to bring that back. So one of the main theories is that ship crept up on them and like killed them all in their sleep just to collect the salvage money. But again, like that seems like an awful lot of work just to get salvage money, and if I was like a pirate like that, I would have just taken the ship.
Yeah, and then to do all that extra stuff of
like
taking that, yeah.
Like I would try to avoid the authorities and do nothing with it. The other theory is that it's an insurance scam by Captain Briggs himself, is to like set it up like the ship is sinking, and then he like sails away from it and is like, oh no, my ship like sank, and like purposely destroy one of the pumps. But it seems like, I don't know, just like a very risky maneuver to do with your family, along with like to do it on a family voyage, and also he didn't do it very well because they never found him.
Yeah, he never collected that money. Do you think there was maybe like a mutiny of some sort, or?
But he handpicked his crew. They're like close family friends and like experienced sailors that probably had more to gain from just continuing to be sailors.
Went and formed a commune with all his buddies on some island, off the grid.
Yeah.
Was this Captain KGB?
No, but he actually was a Yeti. So the most likely explanation, and this one I still take a lot of issues with, but the most likely one is that his navigational equipment was just completely wrong. And so he saw that one of his pumps that like usually pumps out the water was broken. He was taking on water at a rate that he wasn't comfortable with because his wife and kid were on board. Didn't want to take any chances whatsoever. Looked at his faulty navigation equipment. Again, there's no like hard concrete evidence that it's faulty. This is just the theory. Looked at his navigation equipment, saw that he was close to land, and said, I'm not going to risk it. I'm just going to abandon ship and take everyone to land. But like that has some serious holes in it, because one, like 2 weeks later, it was still a ship. Like it was still above water, so you at least had like 2 weeks, if not more time, to like figure your stuff out. Also, like it's a pretty panicked run because you didn't bring anything with you, and also this is all reliant on your like navigation equipment being faulty, which is like, I don't know, it's a little bit shaky to like base everything off of.
And also like working in a place where regular calibrations are needed. Sometimes they don't happen, and like it's not something you can always rely on. It's something that definitely could be faulty.
I'm gonna say with him, like the captain and his crew being so experienced too, wouldn't it be also unlikely, or wouldn't it be at least like a catchable thing? Like if your navigation equipment is off, like isn't that something you would notice? I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm not familiar with using those tools myself. I just use my Google Maps app, but yeah, it seems odd that, I mean, again, and that's because I don't know like the nature of the tools, but I would assume that someone who is so skilled in navigating would know if their navigation equipment is off or not. But who knows? Maybe it is kind of like impossible to tell.
Yeah. The other kind of fun thing is they say like minor damages, but it could just be like an of the time thing, and they don't have like a complete scope of like what the minor damages are, and it could be something quite major. They just like didn't catch it the first time, and that's the real reason they got off it, or something. Another like kind of sus theory is that like the alcohol went bad and started releasing fumes and made them all go like crazy and jump ship. But I don't really know about that one.
Yeah.
None of their like remains were recovered or anything, right?
Yeah.
It just disappeared off the face of the earth.
But if they like took the lifeboats, they weren't that crazy, right?
Yeah. Well, like crazy in the sense that they wanted to not be on the boat anymore, which is kind of a dumb move in the middle of the ocean.
Or maybe he was trying to collect that insurance money and then just fucked up getting back home.
Yeah. That is like another thing. It just like, why run your insurance scam also with your family voyage? But I guess feed two birds with one stone. You don't have an unlimited unlimited amounts of time to use that boat, so sometimes you just gotta use it.
Yeah, or you can use it as leverage in your insurance case.
Yeah, that's true too. Obviously there's a bunch of supernatural theories too about ghosts taking over the ship and like compelling everyone to just like leave as soon as they can, and they're too scared to like take anything except something that they can use to navigate to shore. A kraken showing up and doing minimal damage but still killing everyone on board.
Yeah, somehow.
Was this in an era and location of pirates? Could it have been pirates?
It could be, but again, you just think there'd be more stuff. Like they didn't take anything. All the possessions were still there.
Interesting.
Unless they like got the ship and then re-abandoned it when they saw it was like collecting water and freaked out.
Yeah.
Like it could be a theory. It's just like building on a lot of assumptions.
Yeah, and like there was no way to know, like, especially at the time, what the extent of the damage was. Like,
You really just let your imagination.
Yeah, like if their decision to abandon shit was that's justified or not.
Yeah. Ironically, like the ship went through several hands after that, and it was used in an actual insurance scam. They like purposely like ran their ship aground on a coral reef and tried to collect insurance on it, and the insurance people at the time didn't believe them.
So this is how it's really done.
I'll show you by not collecting the insurance money.
Amateur hour over there, first attempt.
All right. Well, my final pick is also going to be a little maritime-based mystery. Mine occurred in 1901 when sponge divers off the coast of Greece were diving looking for sponges, obviously, because that's what you did back then. They found a large shipwreck containing a bunch of statues and coins dating back to the 4th century BC. And actually the sponge diver that found it like came up super freaked out. Apparently it was like there's men and there's horses down there on the bottom of the ocean like rotting down there, and then they went down and it was just statues. But amongst all these ancient artifacts, they found what is known as the Antikythera mechanism, which is one of the earliest examples of an analog computer. So the Antikythera mechanism, which was found in this shipwreck, which was apparently part of like a voyage that was transporting a bunch of old statues and coins and different like treasures from one Greek island to another around like 50 BC, but it's believed that this mechanism dates back to as late as 205 BC. But what it is a precise set of labeled gearing that allowed a user to follow the movement of the moon, including like eclipses and any like interesting variations from patterns, as well as the 5 known planets at the time and like all their like zodiac celestial figurings, which is tech way ahead of the time for like something that's essentially a computer to figure all this out, mechanized in such a way that allows them the accuracy to follow these like astronomical variations. This gearing specifically to follow like an elliptical path isn't seen until medieval clocks, which is over 1,000 years after when scientists believe this device was created. And they were able to date it to around 205 BC because the gearing and like the space in which the device was calibrated on were related to the eclipse that happened in 205 BC. So that's why they think that it was created around then. So one of the mysteries is who like made it, and a big theory is Archimedes or like one of his pupils, like well-known studiers of astronomy, made it. But to me, a more interesting mystery is why like technology stopped and like why we haven't seen developments of like a computer or like a mechanism that is accurate like this for like over 1,000 years into the medieval time, where it like picked up at the technological developments of this creation.
Yeah. So when I was in undergrad, I wrote an anthropology paper about indigenous tribes in Sweden and Michigan that both made birch bark canoes almost exactly the same. Like the engineering behind them was like very, very similar in the ways that they were doing them. And I read a bunch of theories about how humans are all very smart, and if they're given a challenge and some like tools to do it and enough time, they'll probably come up with the same conclusions. And that shows up today with people that have won the Nobel Prize, and then they'll find evidence that people, you know, across the world actually discovered those like same results or like that same finding, you know, like 60 years before them. They just like never got it published or got the publicity behind them. And then there's like an outcry of like, oh, you just ripped them off. And he's like, no, I swear I really didn't rip them off. We just like came to the same conclusion because he's also brilliant, just like me. And I've wondered about that. Like, a computer is such a valuable thing, and like the Turing test, or like that like line that you can like run calculations on, it's like complicated, but it's not that hard to understand once it's been like explained to you. And so I've like always wondered like if people hundreds of years before the first like Turing test tried to tinker with something that could do those same kinds of things. They just like always got stumped somewhere and weren't able to pass it on to someone else to finish their project. And so maybe someone did, but it just got lost and no one could replicate it because everyone that knew about it died.
Yeah.
And then here we are.
Or it sank to the bottom of the Mediterranean.
Or it sank to the bottom of the Mediterranean.
And no one was able to expand on that. Yeah.
Well, you're the CS major.
Yeah, in my past.
What do you know about labeled gearing that tracks the moon?
The first time my dad ran code for computers, it was on punch cards.
Whoa.
Yep.
Individual like bytes, like you know how there's like a gigabyte now, like just one of those.
One byte.
One byte.
Yep. Yeah. To answer your question, Mo, not a lot, believe it or not. Didn't really study that much during my college years. But yeah, it is fascinating too, because it might also just be like a case of the people who built it had no idea, you know, like what it was capable of. They just, you know, they built it for a very specific purpose and didn't realize it had much broader potential, you know, to be something completely different than anything they could have possibly thought of. And that would be like my guess as to the origins of that, especially since like it was, like you said, built to like around the eclipse and to like attract it and stuff like that.
They're like, we know when the eclipse is going to happen. We know
Yeah.
when the moon's going to be here. And then it was also used to attract the Olympic Games.
Oh wow!
But like
okay.
also like that's all they needed. Like
Yeah.
they didn't realize like
Mhm.
oh we could use like similar formula that we do with this to
Right.
like do so much more. And
Yeah.
they're just like this is all we need to do.
Yeah.
Why would we need more than this?
Might be a case of just someone building something that's way ahead of its time that they because it's so far ahead of its time just don't really realize all the applications that it could possibly have.
Yeah, and also like it seems like technology is a pretty linear regression or like linear slope, but a lot of the times it like dips and then accelerates up and then dips again. Like a pretty classic example is the printing of the Library of Alexandria that like set us back like 1,000 years just because all the hard drives got wiped.
Yeah.
Like literally all of them.
Literally.
And like you can think back to the Greeks who like were able to calculate the circumference of the Earth like thousands of years ago. And shoot, there are some people these days that don't even think the world is round. So
I'm very surprised Flat Earth wasn't one of the conspiracies we drafted.
Why do people think the Earth is round? How crazy is that? But like even more acutely, like the idea for like cell phones and like mini computers in your pocket have been around since the 80s. We just didn't have like the technology to link up with it to be practical. Like they had like a hard drive on their hip and like a battery on their other hip and like a big thing on their back with the fan on it. But like they had technically a portable computer on them, but like we hadn't gotten to the point technologically to make it so it's just like a little card in your pocket.
Yeah. Portable phones too, or like a briefcase.
Yeah.
Like the first portable phones. Yeah. It is there's like some law of technology that it doubles. Technology will like double in efficiency like every 10 years, something like that. I forget exactly what the name of the law is, but like looking back historically, it's been pretty consistent in that like we've kind of doubled our technological capabilities every decade or so. And even thinking back to the beginning of our lifetimes, like just how different the technology was back then to now. Couldn't use the internet if someone was on the landline because that was the internet.
The big thing for me when I think about how far technology advances, remember what a big deal like memory space was?
Yes.
And now it's like so easy to get your hands on like a terabyte and even just like a USB drive. And it used to be like if you had like a 16 gig iPhone, that was like a pinnacle of luxury, and that was like a sought after thing, and now 16 is like, I don't know, a song.
Barely functional.
Right.
Yeah. Back to the Turing machine. This is going to sound extremely nerdy, but someone built a Magic the Gathering deck that functioned as a computer, and if you just ran through the natural turns, it could create a game state such that if you just ran through the natural turn cycles of the game, it could function as a calculator.
And that's just with like the basic Magic the Gathering cards.
Yeah, it would like create a game state where like things would like activate other things and could answer your question.
That's crazy.
That is insane.
Yeah.
People are crazy. It's like the people who build computers within Minecraft.
Yeah.
Sort of deal. Like way too much free time, but also brilliant.
Truly a mystery.
Indeed.
So those are all of our big worldwide mysteries, but if you're not bored yet, just wait.
Do you want to do a recap real quick of what we drafted? Draft recap?
So I haven't been writing them down because I've been too entranced by them. So why don't we just do it popcorn style? We'll just say what they all are really fast back to back.
Sure. I can start. My picks for mysteries were how did life begin on Earth? What is dark matter and dark energy? Or what are dark matter and dark energy? And why didn't the Seattle Seahawks run the football on second and goal?
Lovely spread.
Much to that, I picked the Solder Children fire tragedy the Ditov Pass, otherwise known as Dead Mountain, and the Mary Celeste ghost ship.
And my picks were the Somerton Man, also known as Tamanchud, the Chicago Tylenol murders, and the Antikythera mechanism.
Yeah, vote for your favorite ones. Whoever gets the most votes won't have to complete an Iron Man. The other two will.
Separately, not together.
Not together. And actually competing, and then the one that loses has to do another one immediately following.
Yes,
So
and they have to beat their previous time, but they have to do it again.
yeah.
And also the people who don't get the most votes are KGB.
Well,
assuming we're not KGB already.
Yeah, I'd never admit that. We're gonna move on to some personal mysteries from our own lives. Should we do reverse draft order just so we have to keep Mo talking the longest?
Yeah,
Sure.
Sounds good to me. My personal mystery took place circa 2009. I had just gotten an iPod Nano Video for Christmas, and this is a big deal because my parents never bought me like name brand or like expensive things. And like one of my dad's coworkers heard that I wanted one of these and like convinced my dad to buy this for me. So it was like a rare occurrence for me. I got an iPad Nano Video, super excited about it, got all my songs on there, figured out how to put Pirates of the Caribbean 3 at World's End on it.
Classic film.
Great film. Was able to watch it whenever I wanted on my little iPod. Fast forward to Easter after Christmas that year. I'm at my cousin's house, have the iPod with me, of course, at all times. Spend a lovely weekend there, use my iPod a bit. When we go home, it's time to go home, pack everything up. I cannot find my iPod. Nowhere to be found in the house. We literally turn the whole place upside down, look under cushions, look under couches, look under carpets, look in any nook and cranny of the house. All my clothes, everyone's clothes, we cannot find it. My cousin still lives there to that day. That iPod has still never been found. We don't know where the iPod is. Still devastating to me. Would love to have it. Would love to be able to watch Pirates of the Caribbean 3 at World's End whenever I went, but still no idea where that iPod is.
Yeah, I definitely thought this was going. It was like one day I watched Pirates of the Caribbean 3 and I saw a hidden message telling me to steal the Declaration of Independence. But yeah, that one's also Scoopy.
Scoopy scary.
It's a little spoopy. I definitely relate to like having things and then going to my grandparents' house and then like losing them. I remember distinctly once I left my Game Boy behind like halfway through the drive back from my grandma's house and I was like, can we please go back and get it? And I think they did, but they were super unhappy with me after that. But yeah, that's so like this isn't like just like a prank, like someone
No.
like hid it and
Like, I trust all my cousins like so much that I don't even think that they took it. My entire family was still at that house and everyone like participated looking for it, trying to find it. Like my theory is that I went down a vent or something, like a floor grate or something, and just never to be seen again. But for something so valuable to be go missing so quick.
Yeah, that's a big deal, especially back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day, like I still like when I'm back at that cousin's house for Christmas, I'll still like peek around maybe looking for it, but it's not turning up.
Yeah, you can't give up hope entirely with something like that. That's
yeah.
just too important.
You probably could have finished Pirates of the Caribbean 3 with all that time you've been without it.
Yeah,
That would be so
quite a few
long.
times.
Oof. Alright, so is it me next?
Yeah. Mhm.
So mine is like more strange than anything, and it happened to me a couple months ago. I was at Walgreens wearing my pair of off-color Jordan 1 shoes. These shoes are like pretty well worn. I bought them as like a graduation present to myself, but they still like look nice, and I get compliments on them from time to time. And while I was at Walgreens, one of the employees at the store was pretty young. I'd say he was quite a bit younger than me, probably like 20 years old. He complimented me on my shoes. I said thanks. And then like I kept walking around the store and he like bumped into me again and he offered me $100 no, he didn't offer me $100. He asked me how much I paid for them And I said, I don't know, like $100. And he asked me where I got them, and I said online when they were doing the release of the Michael Jordan documentary. They like did it alongside it. He's like, cool, and he offered me $100 on the spot for it. And I said no. He asked me why, like, I could buy like a new pair of shoes right now with that $100 if I spent $100 now, and then I could have a new pair of shoes like ready to go instead of the scuffed up other ones. And I said, because it's the middle of winter and I need shoes, dude. So then like we kept going along, and I was like getting more of my stuff, and then I like check out, and it's just me and him at the front counter, and he offered me $120 plus he would drive me to get new shoes because he really wanted these Jordan ones. And I was like, no, dude, like I have shit to do. Like the opportunity cost just like is not worth it. And he like kept going, and he went up to $180.
Damn.
Plus he would drive me to a store to buy new shoes, like whatever I wanted. And I like couldn't get the angle. Like these are not nice shoes. He can't be like making that much money at Walmart. Like, so the obvious thing is just that like we go into the back, I give him my shoes, he like takes them and run, and it's just like a scam that way. But that is the dumbest scam on the planet because it's while you're working, and I would just call the police and be like, someone that was working at Walgreens
on the clock.
On the clock stole my shoes. And they would pull up like the records of the 3 Walgreens employees that were working that day and say, was it one of these 3 people? And I would say, oh, it was that one.
Yeah.
So the other thing that was like bizarre about it was I was like, if you're so desperate to get these shoes, like you can definitely buy them for $180 online.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I need them today. And that like still sticks with me. Like there's like desperation in his voice when he said, I need them today. So like either he just like, I don't know, like needed the shoes.
His dead body was found outside the Walgreens the next day.
Yeah, I don't know.
Any shoes.
The shoes were missing.
I mean, go ahead.
Did he have like a date later, or like meeting up with like a cool friend that he like told he was like a sneakerhead and like desperately needed like a cool pair of Jordans to like fit that part?
But the other thing is he didn't ask me what size they were either the entire time, so I don't know if he wanted them for him or to like resell them.
Yeah.
And I think we looked it up afterwards, and some of them were going for like 140 or like 150.
Like max.
Yeah. And again, for like better shoes than something you see me like walking around in. And I think the real answer to this is that he's a sneakerhead, and you can't apply reason to a sneakerhead who is like so divorced from reality that they pay like $500 for
like,
a pair of tennis shoes that you can't even wear.
The people that change the way they walk and bend over so they don't crease their sneakers, like you can't apply reason to that.
My favorite is Kanye West was walking through a construction site, or like about to, saw that he had to walk through a construction site, took his shoes off so he wouldn't get them dirty, and walked through in his like
bare feet.
And I was like, I don't know what you're wearing, but they're not shoes. Like you have fundamentally divorced what's ever on your feet from shoes at that point.
If you'd rather walk around in your bare feet or in socks over this like utility clothing item.
Yeah, not OSHA approved at all.
Yeah. And like honestly, for like a second after I left the Walgreens, I was like, was I like a giant idiot? Should I have just taken them up and gotten $200 and a new pair of shoes? Like, I like these shoes, but like not that much. But also like, I don't know, just like trust your gut. If it seems weird and he seems like extremely desperate, just like get out of there.
What was his play?
It was like honestly kind of scary the way he like just like kept going up in price. Like he like really, really, really wanted them.
Shoes.
Yeah, I think that's a red flag. So the answer is no, you're not stupid for selling the shoes off your feet to a guy begging you for them.
Yeah, I was like the gall of like in the middle of winter, there's like snow on the ground to be like,
Walgreens.
While you're at work.
So much of it just doesn't add up.
That's why it's a mystery.
Exactly. Oh, that's a good one. My personal mystery happened circa like 2006, maybe 2005, something like that. I was at a good friend's house. He had a basketball hoop in his driveway, and there was a garage like right next to the basketball hoop as well. And the house behind the house that he lived at had like it was 2 stories, didn't have a garage, was kind of like at the end of the plot of land, so we could see the windows, and just into the windows basically of the house. And we saw these really weird lights coming from the window. And my friend like pointed it out. He was like, "What the heck is that? Like, what is going on in that house?" And like it was just these really weird lights. They were changing colors all the time. It was just very strange to our little brains. And both of our dads were there. I was just about to leave about to go home. And we pointed it out to our dads, like, what the heck is that going on in that window up there? And our dads looked at each other, and they were like, "That's a TV." And that was our mystery solved right there. that was it. And we were like, oh. And we had spent so much time wondering what the hell could have been going on that was making all these flashing lights and like changing at random. It seemed like there was no pattern, no rhyme or reason to it. And our dads were like, "Yeah, it's a TV, guys." We're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that reminds me of like whenever I have any computer problem ever. When I was like in high school, I'd be like, "Dad, my computer's not working," and then I would like show him, and it'd like work for him the very first try, exactly what I was doing, and I was like, the universe is not on my side.
Sometimes you just need a dad to fix things just by being a dad.
But also it could be like so many of the answers to our mysteries today could have just been something so simple as like, oh, it's just like a TV, like something that is like seems too benign and too obvious for it to be the answer. It's just that's just what happens.
Spoken like a true KGB agent.
Maybe none of these are mysteries at all.
Okay, that's all the mysteries we got for this pod. Does anyone want to shout out anything that's cool going on?
Join us next time for our next episode where we solve all these mysteries.
Oh, man.
We'll see you in Russia.
Next guest, Putin.
And then...
All right there, Tucker Carlson.
The next episode after that, we're going to each create 3 mysteries. And then the one after that, each other has to solve them. Mm-hmm. And then we'll finally put this whole thing to bed. Until next time...
Join us on Mowing the Lawn, where mysteries are solved.
And created.
Thanks for having me again, boys. That was a lot of fun.